Shen and I have been close friends since we were children, and one day while we were playing, I senselessly asked about Shen's family. Because the Shen family was the wealthiest in the area as a result of selling tofu for many generations. Shen stated that his great-grandfather Jin started his career without any resources, and there was a thrilling story that had been passed down in the Shen family until now. Shen then began telling me the story. He also told me not to tell anyone about the story, which piqued my interest even more. Shen's great-grandfather Jin worked as a hired worker for other people when he was young. His life was very difficult and poor. Jin's daily job was simply mowing the lawn or doing other jobs that people hired him for. Jin married after a while as well. Soon after, they had a child, and that was now Shen's grandfather. Because life was too difficult, Jin devised a business plan to help his family. He saved up and purchased a bag of fresh soybeans. His business plan based on a tofu recipe taught by Jin's mother in the past. He ground these beans to get water. Back in the day, people cooked milk with soybeans mainly. With Jin's heirloom recipe, the bean paste quickly solidified into a large, soft mass that looked very delicious. Jin initially offered to sell to local households, but because they were unfamiliar with the food, they only bought a little at a time. When they returned home, they could make many different delicious and nutritious dishes with the tofu, and Jin's tofu gradually gained popularity. People in the area began to come to Jin for more purchases. Jin suggested to his wife that they open a small shop for business as their business grew better and better. Because their business was doing well, people from other areas frequently came to place orders, and Jin would deliver the tofu to them. Jin was completing an order as usual one day. He needed to transport the tofu to the next village, so Jin woke up early to prepare to go. Because there were no other modes of transportation available at the time, everything was transported by road. But when he arrived, the customer's house was closed and there appeared to be no one living in there, so Jin returned. The couple felt strange, but what concerned them more was that the tofu couldn't be stored for long. Especially this was almost all of their tofu for today. But instead of giving up, Jin decided to carry the tofu around and sell it, as well as visit other villages to see if anyone would buy it. So Jin carried the tofu to go once more. It was getting dark now. Jin had gone for a long time but only sold a few of the tofu, and seeing that it was already dark, he was disappointed and was about to return. Jin then noticed from a distance a very large and extremely busy restaurant with many customers coming in and out. Jin was taken aback by how deserted the area was, but this restaurant was doing exceptionally well. Jin turned to leave when he heard a voice calling him from behind. Jin quickly turned around when he noticed the restaurant owner beckoning from a distance. Jin walked over to see what he needed. The owner then offered to buy all of Jin's tofu. Jin was taken aback. Why would a stranger offer to buy himself a whole basket of tofu?
Hello, I'm a friend of your mother, and I heard your tofu is delicious. Just leave it all to me, said the owner.
Accompanied by an invitation to join them for dinner because his restaurant was hosting a party to commemorate a special occasion today, but Jin refused, stating that all he needed to do was carry the tofu inside and return. The owner did not force him at this time. He simply told Jin to carry the tofu to the kitchen and then he could leave. Jin followed the owner inside the large house and went straight to the kitchen. The owner put his hand on Jin's shoulder just as he was about to turn around, intending to keep Jin. He explained that he wanted to invite Jin to dinner to show his admiration, Also, the way back was a bit long and it was already dark, and he saw Jin was very tired. Jin still refused, citing the fact that his family was waiting for him at home. However, the owner was still ecstatic and pushed Jin to the table. Jin was pushed to a dining table with the owner's enthusiasm, and what was in front of him surprised Jin. Because there was such a feast in front of Jin right now, full of fish and meat, which were cooked very attractively, Jin couldn't resist the enticing scent of the food after carrying tofu for the whole afternoon and being exhausted as well. Seeing the increasing number of customers entering the restaurant, Jin initially planned to eat briefly and then leave. Jin devoured a chicken thigh because such a hearty meal was normally difficult to have. Jin looked around for a while of attentive eating and noted something was wrong. Jin looked at the people next to him. They didn't talk at all, and they didn't even eat. He took the initiative to start a conversation, but they did not respond. Jin reasoned that they didn't like him because he didn't pay for the meal. Looking back, the restaurant's owner was seated with other customers. Jin was a little embarrassed because he had been invited to eat such delicious food like this for free. As a result, Jin decided to bring a cup of tea to the next table to toast with the owner to thank for treating him so well. Jin attempted to speak and thank him when he arrived, but the owner did not respond. He was sitting still, neither eating nor responding to Jin. Jin noticed something odd and asked if the owner thought he was a jerk because he ate without paying. But no matter how many times he asked, the owner sat motionless. Jin took the initiative to call him because he thought it was too weird, but as soon as he walked over to touch the owner, Jin was startled by what he saw. All of the dishes on the table in front of the owner and his guests. There was no meat or fish at all, only worms and maggots on the plates. And they were still alive, crawling around on the plates and on the table. Other foods were simply soil and worms. Jin panicked at this point and the owner slowly turned around. Jin screamed in terror when a skull full of maggots appeared. Jin was so terrified and panicked, he took a step back and attempted to flee, but tripped. Jin fainted after his head hit the ground, and he had no idea what had happened. Not sure how long Jin was unconscious, but when he awoke, he saw a large crowd in front of him. He opened his eyes slowly to see better. It turned out to be his wife and some close neighbors. Jin was still in shock and was about to tell his wife what he had witnessed. The old man who lived next door quickly stopped him, preventing Jin from speaking. After that, everyone pitched in to help Jin get out of the woods. After that, everyone told Jin that because it was late at night and he hadn't returned, his wife had called some neighbors to look for him. After a while searching around, everyone found Jin lying next to a grave. With his mouth full of mud, Jin heard it and was perplexed. Had he met ghosts? Jin quickly put his hand in his pocket after recalling that they had paid him. Jin took out a bunch of dried leaves. Jin dashed over to check the tofu load because he remembered selling the tofu to those ghosts, and they used the tofu in a variety of delicious dishes. And when he opened it, there was no longer any tofu inside. So what happened to the tofu in the end? Jin's family was very concerned about him after what happened, but Jin insisted that he was fine. Jin simply stated that he was tired and needed to rest. Jin vomited a lot after that because of what he ate, and everything Jin vomited up was mud mixed with tofu. Jin eventually stopped delivering and began to open a restaurant, serving dishes with tofu as the main course. The strange thing was that after that day, Jin's tofu suddenly became more popular and customers were lining up every day. Surprisingly, the idea of opening a tofu restaurant made Jin's business much more convenient. Jin's tofu had almost gotten everyone addicted and crazy. Jin believed he got this idea from his ghost encounter. Soon after, Jin's restaurant appeared like a kite in the wind, and it was soon able to expand into a large store, and Jin became increasingly wealthy. After hearing Shin's story, I began to have strange thoughts. That the tofu pieces my parents bought from the Shen family, which I ate every day, had anything to do with the bugs or the things Jin went through that night.